I'm happy to go as in depth. You know, nothing is off limits. So whatever you want to ask, I'm all in.
Yes, sir. Well, let me get my my start ready. Hey, I'm Frederick Hicks from CHH Talk, and we got here are my series, Quarantine Christians Reigniting of the Faith, with my special guest, Thomas Iannucci. You can introduce yourself, sir.
How's it, everybody? Yep, Thomas Iannucci. I am a rapper out in Hawaii. I'm very blessed to sit down with Frederick and talk about my album, life, the quarantine, faith, whatever else we get into. So very excited to be here.
Sure. All right. So this is the Doubting Thomas episode. So each episode I've done has a theme. So the last episodes was the culturally villainous theme, and then so I try to do it based off of the artist. But you know, before we get into the album, you know, quarantine, first topic, you know, it caught everybody off guard. I don't know if it's bad over there as it is over here. I'm in Texas, so like people are wilding out, but you know, we all had our own life before this started. So how was life for you? How was life for you artistically before quarantine hit?
Honestly, bro, it's kind of a interesting situation because it sounds horrible to say, but quarantine, not COVID, but the process of locking everything down.
I know what you mean.
I gotta phrase this right. You know, Thomas Iannucci comes out and says he loves COVID. You know, no. But the actual quarantine itself is one of the best things that has happened to me in a lot of ways. It's very interesting because to that point, so I was working probably about 60, 70 hours a week, just grinding. It's very expensive over here. And my fiance and I had just gotten engaged. So we were trying to just save as much as we could for the wedding and all that kind of stuff. And it was pretty miserable, bro. Like I was burnt out. I was not in a good place creatively. I was really struggling. Relationship wise, we were arguing all the time because we were so overworked, you know? And we were both really burnt out. Mentally, I just wasn't creating my best music. A lot of it was real bad. But when quarantine came, honestly, I didn't do anything for like 3 weeks. Just zoned out and just like watch Netflix and read.
That's what the guy said. Like that's literally what
and I just I needed what's the word? Like I needed to regroup, you know, like the Lord. I feel like one thing that God is teaching the world right now is about honoring the Sabbath, you know, because I think that we've really gotten away from that. And he's part of what he's showing is that like, dude, you guys do have to like sit and reflect and take a break and stuff like that once in a while, because we're not meant to be always on the go. And you know, and so as far as the lockdown has gone, I mean, it has been so much better. I finished, bro, like I finished an album, an EP, halfway through with another album. A book, you know, I wrote a book. I've been writing a bunch of short stories. Like, dude, like it's the one thing is that I've always been the guy who's always complained, like, I wish I had more free time to work on my art and that kind of stuff, right? So I promised myself after I kind of caught my breath and it seemed like quarantine wasn't going to go away anytime soon. I was like, I'm not going to be the guy who always complains about not having free time. And then when it comes, doesn't do anything with it. So I've probably never been more productive artistically in my entire life. I've been flying. We finished this new album, Doubting Thomas, in the lockdown, and we've been working on it for years. I think like 3.5 years, but we made crazy progress in this time because there's just so much free time to just grind, you know?
Yeah, man. And I feel like that's something people don't consider. Like, whenever people were like, I mean, back whenever Kobe died, like, granted, I was very upset. I was sad whenever Kobe died, but I see, you know, whenever Kobe died, everybody was just like, you know, 2020's over with, you know, bump 2020. And we didn't even know what was in store. Like we were saying, we were confessing this over a celebrity death. And granted, it was tragic. It got worse. And I feel like it was kind of our responsibility because we shouldn't have been so negative about it to begin with.
Right.
And whenever quarantine started, I always wanted to make sure that that wasn't my confession, that I wasn't always saying it was going to be a bad year.
Right.
And then, you know, like, yes, it's been a great year, bro. I understand. You know, God has been good to me also. And even though, of course, I've been hit by COVID and stuff has happened, you know, God's like, yo, I'm still God, regardless of what's going on.
Yes.
But
exactly right.
Yeah, bro. So you drop. Okay, I don't know how to pronounce the names. I really don't. So I don't want to mess it up. I got
you.
Okay, you drop Makana.
Okay, Makana.
Okay, you dropped Makana 2017 under the moniker Italian. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So who is he, and how did that artistic side of you affect your in like life?
Sure. So that's actually a really good question. I'm glad you asked, because a lot of people don't catch that nuance. So when I first started rapping, I was probably like about 15. I was in high school, and I just went by my name, right? Which I'm doing again now. Oh yeah, that's Thomas. He raps, you know. But in those days, was really like I had to make. So I'm mixed race. I'm Italian, Filipino, but I look super white.
Yeah.
And what I had to kill right away, I felt, was any Vanilla Ice or Eminem comparisons.
Oh yeah.
I had to do that like right away. So I came up with Italian as kind of a clever response, like, no, I'm not white, I'm Italian. And usually the crowd would be like, oh, you know, it's like a clever, like little, you know, like a freestyle or something. I came up with that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So that was kind of a self-defense mechanism, but let me just run with that. And so what I was doing was I could kind of hide behind Italian, and I could kind of keep myself separate. And in my very earliest music, which isn't really like available on, except on like maybe like my old MySpace and stuff, you know, it's not very authentic. It's all basic surface level raps. When I got into my first studio EP, Sleepless Nights in 2014, that was the first time it started to get a little bit deeper, and then Wakana also. But even so, there were just areas of my life and my upbringing and things like that that I just didn't talk about. So Italian was a way for me to keep separate whatever I didn't want to talk about. If I didn't want to be authentic in something, I could just say, well, you know, that's Italian. That's not me.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And I eventually got to a point where I was like, okay, it's been about 10 years under this name. And that's cool. But if I'm going to progress any further as an artist, I have to be me. You know, I cannot keep having a pretend line, a pretend separation between the two. So, you know, he's got to die, so to speak, right? So Thomas Iannucci can live, you know, kind of a deal. So that I no longer have the luxury of hiding behind someone or something. And I have to grow as a person, as a man, as a Christian, and an artist in real time, you know, all my flaws on display. And it was very freeing for me musically to kind of get to that place. Does that make sense? You know?
Yeah. So would you say, like, as an artist or as like a consumer, should we separate the artist from the musician and the art?
Well, that's actually a very tricky question, because it's a big debate amongst a lot of musicians, you know? So you have someone like Eminem. That was always his thing, right? Slim Shady is not Marshall Mathers. You know, I do some of this, you know, for fun or for jokes or for the music or for shock value or something like that. That's not me. You know, he talks about that in like Sing for the Moment, about how people confuse reality and the music and that sort of thing. But on the other hand, especially in this day and age with social media, you're no longer just selling music, you're selling yourself as the product, right?
Yeah.
So my music, my social media, my branding, all these things are to get people to care about Thomas Iannucci, the person, so you will support my music and my endeavors and that sort of thing. Because, you know, when everything is free, people no longer pay for music, so they're not going to support you in that level unless they're invested in you. So you can't be surprised if people are combining you in the music with you as a person, because you're always being sold as an all-inclusive package.
Yeah.
Now, of course, as performers, we're always going to have a private side. I'm not going to talk about everything, you know. There needs to be some separation, but we don't have that kind of luxury that we used to have before, you know, in the old days where there could be this mystique kind of thing, you know what I mean?
You just kind of popped out, did your thing, and just like,
and then just right,
unknown, yeah,
right, exactly. You know, you can't do that anymore. Biggie Smalls wouldn't be able to talk about raping young girls, you know what I mean? And then just be like, nah, it was just bars, bro. You know, it's just bars. Like, there would be a whole investigation into this because people don't. I'm not saying that was okay, but you know, like people don't separate the music and the artist anymore. So you just have to accept it for what it is. I think, regardless of what's maybe preferential or ideal, it just is what it is, and so artists should act accordingly.
Word. That makes sense. I mean, and I understand because, like, so I grew up listening to mostly just Christian hip hop, and I feel like in that kind of sphere, you can't afford to try to be, well, this is just me, where this is just the music and I'm just the artist. Because even in that, like, no, you're, you know, it should all be one thing. Because if it's not, then okay, you're either faking or you're like really about it. So,
although unfortunately, there's a lot of that in Christian hip hop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't be.
It should be like, even more so. It shouldn't be. Yeah.
It literally should just be like, yeah, you know, I does this and I'm proud of it, and you shouldn't have. There shouldn't be any debate about, you know, where my intentions are and stuff. And of course, you know, make your money, do what you got to do, duh. But you shouldn't do that at the, you know, expense of your integrity and stuff. Because at that point, you know, then who are you really? You've made your music your God, and you know, that's not good.
Right.
But you've been teasing your new album, Doubting Thomas, and how it concludes the trilogy, excuse me, of your 3 CHH albums being Makana, Kuleana. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, that is. Good job.
Appreciate it.
But Kuleana is not part of the CHH trilogy. Yes.
Wait.
You have to go way back.
Oh, man.
Sleepless Nights. Yes, okay, yes.
Okay, so usually before I do an interview, I always do my research. And I was looking, I couldn't find anything. I was like, oh, well, I guess this is it. Really? It's not?
Yeah, it's Sleepless Nights. What happened is I took down Sleepless Nights and I kind of retouched it up, made it a little bit better. And then I re-uploaded it in 2020. So it doesn't come up chronologically anymore. But that originally came out in 2014.
Oh, it's like in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's as an EP. For some reason, a lot of the music services don't list EP as projects. They list it under singles.
Like singles.
Yeah, and I'll hit you with a link to that.
Appreciate it.
But so that is the first one. And Kuleana was kind of part of why I for sure decided that Doubting Thomas is going to be the last. It is going to complete the CHH trilogy, and I'll transition from there because Kuleana was my first non-Christian hip-hop album. And really, it's not like it's explicit. It's not like it's anti-God or anything like that. Yeah, it's just hip-hop. It's just hip-hop. Exactly. And, and you know, I was very blessed that, you know, it won the Hawaiian Grammy and it was well received, you know, in Hawaii and all over, but it didn't quite hit so much in the Christian hip hop circle.
I don't know why.
Well, I think you and I both know that there's a certain kind of artist and a certain style of music that resonates with the CHH crowd, you know. And that's not a bad thing or a good thing, but it is a thing.
Yeah, you can't deny it.
Yeah, you can't deny it. And that is not me. The way I grew up, the things that I've seen are not necessarily experiences that resonate with the core demographic of the CHH crowd, which would be the suburban white youth group kids, right?
You
know, at least in terms of, that's of course not all the listeners of Christian hip hop at all, but in terms of where the money is.
Yeah, who's at the concert? Who's at the concert?
Exactly.
Literally.
They are the driving factor, right? Yeah, literally. And if you are someone like myself who would love to make a career off his music and make a living off of it, if the money is there and you are not, right? Either I can go keep chasing that and chasing the trends and whatever else and trying to make myself be something I'm not, or I can just go where my music is better received. you know?
Yeah.
And so Kuleana was kind of confirmation. I was like, okay, I think it's time to close this chapter. So let me do it big, you know, let
Yeah.
me do it on my own terms. I think that even though it's a Christian hip hop album, this new one, Doubting Thomas, is it's extremely authentic. You know, I'm deep diving, I'm touching on things like mental health and my own struggles in a way I haven't before. So it's kind of like a fusion between it's my interpretation of a Christian hip hop album, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, this I think will be kind of a great way to cap that off.
So okay. You speaking about mental health.
Sure.
I was listening to Kuleana today. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
So I heard Makana before,
Mm-hmm.
I think a couple months ago, but
Sure.
I didn't listen to Kuleana yet. I don't know why, but I listened. I was like, yo, this is nice. Like, I was like, I was driving and I was like, yo, this is a classic.
Thank you, bro. Thank you, man.
Is it Iliende, that song?
Yeah,
That
with
song,
Joe.
that was nice. Remember, y'all just started like,
Thank you, bro.
y'all like tagged, which is like next. And I was like, wait, I was like, so, I mean, in your music, you've talked about losing friends to like drug addiction. You talked about losing friends to suicide. And I can relate with that. But like you said, a lot of people in the demographic can't, even though they probably can't, but some of them might have seen it, but not in the way that I've seen it and not the way that you've seen it. So, you know, how do situations like that affect you mentally? And how do you plan on redirecting that kind of grief in your album?
Sure. So, you know, unfortunately, just how it all fell out, I have, you know, death has been around my life from pretty much from very young. I don't know, you know, I mean, some of my earliest memories involve some loved ones passing away and that kind of stuff. So it's been around a lot. There's a lot of, I'm trying to think of the way to put this. When it's around you a lot, you never become desensitized. That's not the right word, but you do learn how to kind of maybe brush it off without dealing with it. You know, on a deeper level where it's kind of like, yeah, that sucks, and then you kind of just, you know what I mean? And that's not really a healthy way. It's a coping mechanism. And so something that really, the first time that I really, really, really had to like wrestle with that was when, going back to Makana, right? When one of my really good friends, Lucas Makana O'Reilly, passed away. He was hit and killed by a drunk driver. And that was the first time where it hit enough that I was like, I can't just shrug this off. And I really got to wrestle with this and wrestle with God, you know, and that started kind of a mental health journey that helped me become a little bit more healthier in the way that I process these things. And so fast forwarding to now, it's like, okay, grief, you know, as a man growing up, you're always kind of taught that you got to be strong. You're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to show that kind of weakness, you know, because that, I mean, really what it is that if you show weakness like that, then that gives other stronger people the opportunity to take advantage of you because you're weak, right? And you might get, I don't know, you might get physically hurt over something like that, you know? So you're really like never trying to show any of that. But that is actually weakness. That actually comes from a, like, as we know as Christians, that is the weakness itself, right? Is that we're afraid to show that. But when you're able to show grief and process it and deal with it and admit and experience it and take it to God, that is true strength. And it's something that I'm still working through. But that is what I'm learning. And so with Doubting Thomas, it's like, okay, let me open up about this. Let me talk about this. Let me show you what I'm so afraid to show you. You know, let me learn godly strength through my weaknesses, through what I'm so afraid to open up about. whether it's, heartbreak about, a relationship, to grief of losing a loved one, to the fear that, the 2 times my dad had cancer, like the fear that I was going to lose my dad, all that kind of stuff. Let me show you those scars. Let me open up, because I know you're going through stuff too. And if I can open up about it and you can open up about it, and we can have a dialogue, and maybe we can start to affect a little bit of a change in a culture that really, really needs it. And so that's kind of my prayer. I always think of it like a Jesus judo flip. You take what's bad and then the uses it for good,
Yeah.
So kind of something like that. Yeah.
Word, bro. And that's needed. I think about this, we always talk, as I feel like as Christian hip hop artists, they're finally starting to venture into the mental health and, what we go through and stuff. Because I mean, whenever the genre first started, it was just like, we living good in Christ and, everything's all right and type of thing.
Right.
As the genre, as we got, older, so to speak, it was like, I'm going through it. I'm going for real. And this is my release. So I'm going to show you through my release how I'm going through it. It was like, I can't, it's negative. Like, like Christian, it's becoming, there's nothing negative about this. This is life. God gave us these emotions to show people that you can process through them and still be in him through it all.
Amen.
Yeah, bro, it's good that you're doing that. And it's going to be, I'm believing in God that it's received well and that people are able to gravitate to that.
Thank you, man.
Speaking of receive well, you've touched on and spoken about, even before like it was trendy, like the protesting and like two sides of America and Black Lives Matter and Republicans and Democrats and the agendas that go on. So like in your songs like Make America Hate Again, and I don't know about you talked about being Italian and Filipino. So what has been your experience with racism in your musical career and your life?
Sure. So it's been very interesting. I always like boil it down to Italian, Filipino, but I actually have a ton of stuff.
Word.
Italian, Filipino, a little bit of Chinese, English, Spanish. According to Ancestry.com, I think I have a little bit of Polynesian, apparently, like all this kind of stuff. Like there's a bunch of things, but then it's just easier. So we'll just say Italian, Filipino, right? So I've had a very interesting perspective on a lot of this stuff in terms of, I think, interesting for you guys on the mainland, because there's a completely different socioeconomic and racial dynamic in Hawaii than there is on the mainland. So first of all, Hawaii is the only state in the union where white people are a minority. Its majority is Asian and Polynesian.
Wow.
It's the only place.
It's crazy.
I always tell any of my I always tell like my white friends, you want to like get a little taste, come to Hawaii. Tell my non-white friends, listen, you want to change up something different, bro? Hawaii, it's a different experience, man.
That's crazy.
A different experience, yeah. And so for me, I grew up on the west side of Hawaii, so very I guess it's not a perfect metaphor, but you could say it's more country. It's a little bit more country, it's a little more rural, right? But island version, So I grew up on the west side, which is like very deep, local. We're right off the coast of Nā Hōkū, which is the last island where, Hawaiian is the first language and only Hawaiians live there and that sort of thing. So a lot of Hawaiians, a lot of Asians, a lot of locals, not too many white people. So what happens is all the Hapa kids, which is Hapa is like half. So all the kids like me who are mixed but look white, we end up catching a lot of that heat because there is a lot of anger and frustration towards white people. I'm sure it's obvious, we can all understand that, right? With the colonization and the overthrow of the Hawaiian monarchy, right?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Exactly. On top of the way that they set up first the plantations. So, my family on my mom's side, my great grandparents, that kind, working on plantations. And then when that economy switched to tourism, right? where now it's local people working service industry jobs like hotels or rental cars or restaurants and that sort of thing. But it's always been the same power dynamic of kind of waiting on these rich haole people, we call them white people, right? And they come, they develop a lot of land over here, and then they kind of price us out. So I grew up, for example, right next to low-income housing, which is kind of like, like the projects or whatever, right? Where, a lot of drugs, police down there all the time, a lot of violence, and that's where we live. And then you go to somewhere like the North Shore, where it's almost like a different country. It's like all white people up there, and it's a super nice side of the island, right? Even from when I was a kid to now, the number of local people living there is way lower as they get priced out more and more. And so they kind of, gated communities are actually illegal in Hawaii to kind of combat this problem, but it's basically a gated community without a gate, where they all kind of segregate and that sort of thing.
Where the gate is like money, and if you're
yes,
that ain't nothing new to us.
You know what's up, though, right?
That ain't nothing.
So you go over there, and they all kind of look at you like, what are you locals doing here? So plus again, like I can't emphasize enough, like these jobs, like you working, like, say my family owned a restaurant for 5-6 years, a pizzeria. So you work these jobs and these guys come in, and I'm really not trying to make it a racial thing, but just like to just explain like what it's like. It's like they come in, usually if you can afford to go to Hawaii, you have a little bit of money. And a lot of times, and not always, there's some really, really cool tourists for sure. But a lot of times you'll have very entitled people come in, and you kind of got to kiss their ass and deal with a lot of stuff, and that they kind of make you jump through hoops or whatever. So there's a lot of simmering tension. Like it's like deep, this goes back hundreds of years. And unfortunately, the mixed race kids are going to catch whatever the haole kids, whatever the white kids don't, whatever's left after that, the mixed race kids are going to catch, you know what I mean? Like, so, I've been in a lot of situations, where it even came to physical violence because of the color of my skin and slurs and, I'm not gonna, this is a Christian server, so I'm not gonna say, but a lot of things,
bro.
Yeah, you know what I mean, and that kind of stuff, and not feeling safe in certain areas because of how I looked and that sort of thing. And that frustration of feeling like, all right, so for me, when I was young, I'll go to the family reunions and all my Filipino cousins are there, and me looking like me, I never really fit in, and so for me, when I was young, thinking, okay, so I guess I'm white then, so I must be white. And then going to the mainland, and I always like to say that I'm like eggshell. So it's like it looks white until you compare it to the real thing, So and particularly the one thing is during the lockdown, I haven't like left the house at all, so I'm like super pale. But when I'm normally outside, like in a normal human sense, I do have a little bit more normal color. And when I would get up there, a lot of times they'd be like, "What are you, like Mexican? Like what? Like what are you?"
Yeah.
And it would be less aggressive, but a lot of ignorant comments about like, there's like a little tar in the mix there or whatever, right? Like what's your deal? I can't figure you out, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
That's crazy. like
bro, I had one. How's this? My baby sister, she moved up to Idaho, and that's like white,
Yeah.
And she's definitely got fair skin, but like Asian facial features, more round kind of stuff, and she was there and for college, and one day she's at this party, and this girl just kept staring at her, this white girl, the whole time. And then finally she's like, "Hi,
that's what you like.
Can I help you?
Yeah.
Like, hey, like, yeah." And the girl was like, no, sorry, I can't figure you out. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, it's just, there's something wrong with your face. I mean, I mean, your skin is white, but I don't know. There's just something wrong with your face. I don't understand. You don't look right, you know? And it's like, yeah, because I'm mixed, you know, like what? Do you say that to people? Like, do you think that that's like an appropriate thing to say, you know? And always like little, I don't know, microaggressions or whatever you want to use like that, you know? And then it just kind of really soured me on the other side. Like, okay, so I'm not white clearly, but I'm not brown enough, you know, here. So what am I? And so it was a lot of like soul searching, you know what I mean? And a lot of trying to figure out where I fit in and where I belong and that kind of thing. So when it came time for Black Lives Matter, not that it came time, but like when things really came to a head like that, it really struck me on like a real personal level, because though I can't relate in the same way, right? Because I wasn't a victim, say, of systemic oppression. I do know what it's like to be worried that, oh man, I might be about to get my ass beat right now because of the color of my skin. You know what I mean?
What you look like, yeah, bro.
Yeah. You know, like so in that sense, it really, really hit me, and I was like, dude, you know, particularly, I mean, even if I wasn't a rapper, this always would have struck me, but even more so as a guest in the house of hip hop, right? It was African American culture. One of my, you know, probably I would say my main OG is an African American man from Chicago who moved to Hawaii, and he really mentored me a lot. It's like, dude, the culture that has given me so much, you know, has welcomed me as a non-Black man into this culture that I can express myself and I can make music and be embraced like this. I gotta give back. I cannot. That's a big thing in Hawaii, of like, the land, like this thing of like, so the land is alive, right? You don't just take. You have to give as much as you take. That's how you maintain. That's how you keep things healthy. And so that's really big in my brain, is this thing of like, I cannot ever be the guy in this hip hop thing where I just benefit from Black music and Black culture, and then when it's time, when the rubber meets the road and it's time to go down, like I'm just gonna be quiet.
Yeah, that's a culture vulture.
Culture vulture, exactly.
Yeah.
And I could, dude, like I have the privilege that I could just sit that one out. But that doesn't mean I should, you know. So I was down there at the protest, you know, I mean, and whatever I can do, it felt like not enough.
It
but
never
if there's any little thing, you know, and it's not like in a sense of like bragging or anything. I feel very frustrated because I feel like I really haven't done much. But any little thing I can do with my tiny platform to fight for, you know, what's right, for my African American brothers and sisters, you know, like for Black culture, for like to give, you know, a platform for, you know, Black artists, you know, MCs who are just as dope, if not doper than me, but unfortunately don't get noticed in that same way because things are the way that they are. That's always like really heavy on my heart, you know, like to do that as much as can.
Word. I mean, yeah, bro. That's how it is. You know, I feel like the Black community, we don't speak enough about how we treat mixed people in our own community.
Sure.
There's mixed people who are, you know, not necessarily mixed with white, but they're mixed.
Yeah.
And, you know, whenever we see someone who's mixed with Black, we're so quick to just, oh, you're Black. And I mean, in one sense, you know, that makes sense. Okay, cool. They got Black skin today. But like, there's a whole other side of them. And there's a whole other side of the family that they can identify with. And, you know, it's like mixed people, it's like, you know, all Black people go through stuff. Then it's dark skins versus light skins. Then it's men versus women. Then it's if you're gay or if you're straight. Then it goes deeper and it literally like literally sections and sections. Well, we just battle against each other. And I feel like I mean, of course, colorism is real. And of course, you know, we as people have been taught to be conditioned to more European standards of beauty. But we should also apologize and kind of realize that in that kind of same sense, we've messed them up a little bit too, because that gives them an unrealistic beauty standard to live up to that they can't. Because not all light-skinned people look the same, just like not all dark-skinned people look the same. Just like you don't look the same as you were trying to figure out what you look like. You know, I mean, that's how it is, bro. You know, it's a thing that we're just trying to navigate. But I'm glad that year like this happened, where we had nothing but time and we witness, you know, hate crimes like in our face, like you can't turn away. And that's literally what it was. You know, for you to say you want to give back, that's big, because there have been people who just like, all right, oh man, y'all got it though.
There's a lot of people, bro.
And, you know, and we're like,
get into names, but I
think
of a few, you know.
You're like, yo, and they're like, hey, y'all got it. Hey, I'll see y'all at the next festival though. Like, but
yeah, exactly.
But switching gears.
Sure.
Whatchamacallit? Okay, so you're the first hip hop artist from Hawaii to earn 2 Nā Hōkū Hanohano Awards?
Yes. Well, yes.
Is it consecutive? Like
at least in the, I can say for certain, in the hip hop category, I'm the first one.
Okay, that's what I meant.
To win it twice. I mean, there may have been. There's one other guy I'm thinking of who might have won in a couple. You know, he does a bunch of different genres. He might have. I'm not sure, but at least as far as rappers go, I'm the first one from Kauai to win twice. I might be. I know I'm one of the only ones to win twice overall. I might be the only one to win twice overall in the hip hop category. I know it's only a few of us, if so. So that was kind of cool.
So first, congratulations on that. Already, you know.
Thank you, bro.
That's vibe.
That is good.
Put that.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I seen you change your bio to 2 times. I said, yes, sir. I said, go ahead. That's the best part, you know. Update your accolades.
Yes, sir.
You know, how did that feel for you? And you know, what did that reward and recognition do for your influence?
Sure. So the first time I won, well, first of all, the first time I won was as Italian. This time I won as Thomas Iannucci. So it was very validating to do it again under my own name, on my own terms. But the first time I won, I was pretty known already on my home island. And I was working a little bit to get on Oahu, but I was mostly a relative unknown. So it was kind of a surprise. Was a miracle. I think it was all God. I don't know how he worked that out, but he did. Praise Jesus, you know. But this time I came in, you know, having really worked hard to start to establish myself in Hawaii, you know, broadly speaking. And it was very validating to feel like, okay, this is validation that I am starting to get a little bit more known. I am starting to do something right, obviously, you know what I mean? Because there were some, you know, other big names in that category who were just as deserving. But I think that it kind of went into a factor of starting to be a little bit more known and that sort of thing. It was a huge validation in terms of the direction of Kuleana. You know, that whole thing was a big risk at the time. It was very different from the music I was making. You know, it was very much touching on subjects near and dear to my heart in Hawaii and stuff. And you know, the whole thing it was pretty surreal because Jay Crumb produced it, right?
Yeah.
And so when we did a couple tracks together and it went really well. So we sat down and we're like, okay, we're going to do this album and we're going to have this list of goals that we're going to accomplish. We're going to, you know, have it the most streams on any of my projects yet. And we're going to use it. We're going to make the freshman list and we're going to win a Hōkū off of it. And so Crumb reminded me, he's like, dude, like everything that we said we wanted to do, we did off that project, you know, which is, it's all Jesus. It's all God. But it is pretty humbling and pretty amazing that we were able to do that because I'm super big on goals. I really love that stuff, like short-term, medium-term, long-term goals. Like at the end of every year, I come up with my new list of goals for the year. And then it's nice to kind of go back at the end of the year and kind of see what I accomplished or what I didn't. But it's very rare that you hit everything.
Oh, yeah.
And in this case, we actually did every single goal that we listed for Kuleana. We accomplished, and the Hōkū was that last one. So it was very validating. It was very, felt like it was confirmation, God saying, okay, you're about to go in a new direction, and that's my stamp of approval, you know. So it was pretty cool.
Word, congratulations again. That's crazy. You got everything that you.
Thank you. Good, man.
So to sum it off, if quarantine, like if COVID just like disappeared, tomorrow we woke up and everybody was like, we don't have to do anything anymore. You know, how would you differ from the man that you were? You kind of already touched upon this, but like in everything, like what would you do now? Like how would that turn out?
Well, first of all, I can say that how I differ already is that I'm way more relaxed. It's forced me to grow as a man, as a Christian. You know, this whole thing of be still and know that I'm God, right? You know, and kind of waiting on the Lord and seeking Him. I could always kind of just play it off. I'm working so much. Yeah. I do my little devotional in the morning and at night, but just breeze through it, not really like give any thought to it. This has forced me to wrestle with a lot of character flaws. You know, particularly as I'm getting close to getting married in December. So there's a lot of things that need to be worked out in advance that have been getting worked out. I could tell you that, you know. And so that's been a process, but a blessing overall. You know, better to do it now than later. But if it was all to go back tomorrow, I would definitely approach things a little bit differently in terms of money is not everything. You know, as long as I can pay my bills, and it's not like I was banking or anything because it's so expensive to live here, but God has always provided. I've been in some, you know, situations like I don't know how I'm going to pay rent. But He's always done a miracle. You know what I mean? And more work came in, or someone blessed me, or something like that. And so it's kind of a thing of like, you know what, money and work, you know, cannot dominate your life. You really have to keep God first. And also, you know, you have to find a balance, because I was making time for my art, even in the craziest of my schedules. But because I was so overworked, as I said, the art was just kind of struggling. So if you can like find a better way to balance that, that would be kind of my thing, is like, all right, if I can balance that in a little bit healthier way, so I'm not having to stay up super late to work on my art, go to sleep for a few hours, get up, grind, and repeat. You know, maybe I have one day totally off for rest and then another day totally off just for all like music and stuff. And then maybe that's a little bit healthier, fresher. I don't know, things like that, you know. Maybe it's just working a little bit less in general. So when you are working on music at night, you're not so burnt out and you're not just forcing everything. You know, but that would probably be like a big thing for me is, you know, making time for what matters. So also like my relationship, you know what I mean? My faith, my music, all those sorts of things. And even just having fun. Like you gotta be some joy in your life.
Yeah, you can't just work, sleep, repeat. Yeah, you can't.
Which is what I was doing for like a long time before that. And so I think that'd be a big thing. Is we only have one life, and yeah, we're gonna live forever with Christ, but even so, like you gotta enjoy yourself sometimes. You know, you don't want to just work away all your youth, which is exactly what I was in the process of doing. So that was very eye-opening. Yeah, and I think if quarantine were to end tomorrow, I would approach my professional life with a little bit of that, you know, in the back of my head.
Word, bro. I'm finna stop the recording. Hold on, let me just full screen. All right, so this is Thomas Iannucci. You know, we had a heartfelt conversation about, you know, race, the music industry, his future as an artist and a Christian, and you know, just what his plans are, you know, once this is all over with and we return to some sense of normalcy. So this was Quarantine Christians Reigniting the Faith.